All right. We've talked about RegTech. Now let's talk about BizTech services. Let's start with George. Tell us about your company and product, Honā.
Sure. So Honā is a social accountability platform for remote working entrepreneurs and professionals. And the mission is to help people become better together by honoring, well, we're looking at 1 billion commitments by 2030. And the actual word Honā we got from Sanskrit, which means to become. So that was the whole idea. And it came out of COVID last year due to the pandemic.
And obviously, it's also a reference to honesty, because we know that's a very important aspect of our use of blockchain technology with Bitcoin SV. How does your application help keep remote workers honest, especially as so many people are remotely working in this COVID world?
Yeah, so we actually utilize a methodology we developed with a productivity community we've been running over the last 5 years. And this has been embedded into the platform, and we're using BSV as a way to essentially provide an audit trail and also use the payment mechanism for those who actually want to get more serious with their commitments. And we found that this actually becomes even more interesting when applied to teams. And so we built this product as a way to sort of test our hypothesis that we could marry the two areas of goal and habit tracking, as well as micropayments.
Great. Now, before I go to Ryan and talk about his video conference platform, speaking of video conference, we're encouraging, of course, on our virtual conference platform, people to send in questions as well as to engage on social media with hashtag CG Zurich. And we've had some interesting questions come in, including, what is Calvin Ayre's secret to staying looking so young? You can answer that later at the end of the session, and I'll report back. He says red wine, apparently. But let's go to Ryan. Ryan, tell us about your company. And people are probably wondering, what does a video conference platform have to do with blockchain?
Sure. Thanks for having me. So BuzzCast is a virtual event platform, not dissimilar from what you guys, many of you at home, are watching on now. In particular, we focus on the sort of professional grade, larger, more complicated events. We do things like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's annual event, or work with United Nations and organizations like that to do larger, more complicated conferences. So in our world, there's also quite a bit going on that has to do with sponsorships and trying to drive behavior for event hosts of what they're trying to do on the platform. And so, we are looking at BSV and blockchain as a way to both try to drive behavior and to enable, sponsors and hosts to get some of the results they're trying to achieve from their attendees at events.
Can you give us an example of how you'd use a blockchain like BSV to drive attendee behavior to help your sponsors?
Sure. Sure. So let's take the CoinGeek conferences, for example. So you guys have a number of conferences that are going throughout the year, and you want to drive behavior of some of your attendees to attend multiple conferences, or perhaps to go to certain sessions or interact with sponsors or with the community. And so using blockchain and at times things like NFTs, we can help try to drive behavior where people can collect those, whether they're in a virtual setting, or in our world, we have to really think also about the return to hybrid events, where some attendees are going to physically be at events, and some of you are now, and some attendees are going to be online. And if we can use the way to collect those different assets and perhaps then redeem them or trade them for, say, a free ticket to the next event, or some other reward that you guys are trying to drive, that's a way we can help use it to motivate behavior.
Great. Holger, let's turn to you. We heard a session earlier, Pete Bainbridge-Clayton, talking about RegTech on blockchain with KYC, KYB information. Can you expand for us on, for the banking industry, how blockchain technology can be useful for banks and other financial institutions to improve their KYC functions, as well as I know you're really interested in e-signature and electronic ID functions?
Yes, thanks for inviting me and asking me these questions, because I think there's much beneficial in those technology and in terms of sustainability, because those just the static data like we had before in the electronic healthcare, there's also static data that shouldn't belong to us, or we shouldn't care about gathering and storing and doing too much things with such static data. They belong to the clients in principle, and there should be just a shared ledger, which is BSV or just a really scalable blockchain, that these data are created by the clients, or maybe even with the Kanton together, because we are Kantonalbank, and Kanton has also the same issue, having IDs, creating the IDs, and we have a custom. The custom should also care about IDs and signing documents. I think that's all in a good place with us, because we are state-owned, we are a government bank. But the data, they should be not really with us. We would much more better be a client of the data, getting them from a RegTech company or just from clients themselves. Maybe we can certify these data then and say, okay, that's fine. But better would be not really to do these processes, because we have huge processes and huge money is spent on keeping those processes also compliant, and with auditors from external, they check this, and it's getting quite expensive. Now we are just about to change things, and I asked, hey, couldn't we just do kind of a leapfrogging there for the future, the innovative future, but there's still kind of, we are not really the pioneers there yet. So we need to consume what is company, for instance, delivering to us, and then I guess we're quite happy to use it, yeah. And even sustainability is something we are all in. Yeah.
So your idea is that we could actually reduce business processes time as well as thus energy consumption by more automating electronic signatures, electronic ID, if you could create tokens that represent a certification, for example, of ID, signature, that just could be replicated again and again and again without repeating the whole process of KYC.
That's really the best point you just made, because I think in a world when we can create tokens mostly for free, the cost for the tokens creation is
almost nothing.
It's nothing, mostly nothing, only with BSV.
Of course.
And so I'm thinking about a much more tokenization, not only clients' data, okay, not full and in public, but hashed and conform with GDPR and all these things. But then we're discussing about art tokens already. Yeah, that's also something we're internally discussing. Is this because Art Basel is one of the biggest art trade fair for art, and we are also getting questions. We have an art token here, and we say, sorry, it's at the moment not possible to do this. But I'm a coder, yeah. Right. For me, art is great code.
Art is great code.
This
very different way of thinking about art.
The code should be tokenized as well in terms of sustainability and reusability. Because when I start coding, I go also searching in our internal databases for code. Mm-hmm. Much more better would be if there would be a token outside already, which is used maybe from a Kantonalbank as well, checked, used, and then I can get this token for a few cents, maybe, doesn't matter, and then use this token, and we can, in the end, we can even create tokens to build on.
Interesting idea. Well, they do say music is essentially just math, so maybe art is code. George, let's go back to you. Can you give us a little bit more detail on how your application uses the distributed timestamp server function of Bitcoin? Because obviously, Bitcoin was not introduced to the world as a blockchain. It was a distributed timestamp server. How is that important to your app in its function?
Well, our approach with this platform was always to keep Bitcoin as plumbing in the background. So we're using it as it's supposed to be, a truth machine. And so the beauty of our platform in particular is that it's about people setting commitments, staking an amount to those commitments, based on what they're willing to put down. And then having an audit log so that they can see what their own commitments are like. And then as they start engaging with their colleagues, their teammates, and potentially others, everybody can sort of check in on each other to keep each other accountable. It's without going into anything too detailed, Bitcoin has already been created in a way where we can use it as a plumbing system as it is. And everything else just on the front end.
Now, you're also using what's known as the multi-sig escrow function with our blockchain. Can you describe, for the non-tech people here, what's a multi-sig escrow function and how is that useful for your application?
Okay, so one of the things that actually became important for us is we wanted to be able to, when somebody makes a commitment, we didn't want to have to store their funds or hold their funds. So we thought, well, wouldn't it make sense, for the funds to be held in an escrow-like function? So where if you have 2 or more parties, so say you have yourself and an accountability buddy, then between them, when somebody makes a commitment, essentially they want to get their money back if they succeed with the commitment, or it goes somewhere else if failed. It might stay with the accountability buddy or go somewhere else of their choosing. So with the escrow, essentially it just holds it and then releases it when the commitment conditions are met. And the multi-sig is essentially the number of parties. Right. So being able to implement that easily was interesting when we got started. And we spoke to a whole bunch of different wallet developers to get this functioning.
Great. So kind of a different form, but not quite a smart contract. Let's go to Ryan. So you mentioned NFTs as part of something that could help your virtual event platform with inducing behavior of attendees that benefits sponsors. Can you give us an example of the kinds of things you're thinking about creating NFTs of, if you're able to talk about it now?
Yeah, let me try to give a couple examples without giving away too much of what we're doing. So, for example, we deal in content, right? That's one of the main functions of what we do. So we have a big range of the type of events that go on, and to be clear, not every single thing and not every single event and piece of our events are worthy of an NFT. They're not going to be something that's valuable enough that people necessarily want to trade or exchange. There's uses for the sponsorship side of things, like I said, but there's also uses when it comes to particular types of content. So let's say you have a particular speaker, let's say like a Malcolm Gladwell or something like that, who's speaking at an event, who makes a speech that could potentially be used not just at that event, but at other people's events. And so the potential of creating an NFT out of that particular piece of content that could then be used again at other events by other event hosts who are putting on a different event and want to use that, and creating an NFT that could then be reused, and therefore he could be paid or it could be tracked as you move into another event.
Yeah, and part of the beauty of that is the NFT is minted, created at one point in time and placed on a blockchain, and can be accessed from multiple applications in different platforms.
Exactly.
Let's go back to Holger here. Holger, can you give us an example of other types of business processes or functions, particularly in your industry, that you think blockchain technology can make more efficient?
Yes. So I principally, that's from our clients. So the Basler Kantonalbank is a universal bank, and we have lots of different clients in all the different fields of industry. In Basel is quite full with logistics, and these have always the pressure to just pass the customs with the goods and services, and to do cross-border business, and they mostly come to us, and they have also to securitize documents. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they come to us. Can we take out all the paper documents there, and the paper, and even also the processes with the customs is also kind of interesting, and then signing. And yes, I think a bank has, with that set of clients we have, There's so many ideas that you can or help the clients to do easier business, and then even maybe we grow in clients there, because when you the first guy can provide such a solution, again, to create such a thing is quite hard. Maybe we should talk to Unisort or those peoples.
I think you should.
I
can give you a phone number.
Yeah, that should be quite interesting. I also try to connect people in, because I was working long time for trading, and there are lots of business clients there that I know of. But to interconnect all these and then get them on the right thing, and then I think I work for compliance teams. And they need first to understand that BSV is, for me, when I look at it, is the most compliant thing we can have.
Why do you think that?
Because it is so. I make an example. We have just vaccination time, yeah? And some dudes were able, or some companies, small laboratories were able to create a new vaccine.
Okay.
And then what happens? They sell it, or at least it's done, and they go to FDA, and then it's scaled up. Can you change later the protocol of the vaccine and still call it the vaccine?
Well, you can't change a protocol and call it something else.
Yes, so what you get me. So there's a legal thing, I guess, for the contract. The contract for Bitcoin is written in the white paper. For me, but for my clients, the legal teams, I think they need some paperwork around to get an idea what is really the legal basis for them, because we are document. Bank is full with documenting and checkings then, and the checkings is the next thing. If we take a bar or a coin of gold into the bank, we only accept the specific terms of current coins there, and bars, and we have checkings there. Other things we don't accept.
And you have to certify that you're getting the
We have
one.
to certify, and if we are not sure about, we send it back to the minting, and to find out if really is enough gold in this coin. This is missing for me. So why not sending a Bitcoin back to Satoshi and ask, okay, is this the true Bitcoin? Is this what you minted? Or is it something else?
I think you should ask him backstage later.
No, what I'm asking, we need really a framework. We have framework for gold, we have framework for paper notes to check, okay, S&P has created exactly how it is, and we're checking, and we only take those notes.
So
and if you come up with something
a framework for
funny,
authenticating Bitcoin?
Absolutely, and this you can have in a certified token. A token checker, like in I was working for bioinformatics. You have the DNA producing some protein, and then you have Dockers. These Dockers, and we need the Dockers that really accept this is Bitcoin, and this you can have in a token.
Great. Okay.
Who's
That's a
doing this?
fascinating concept I've not thought about, authenticating Bitcoin. Let's go back to George, and thank you for giving us your domain name at Honā.io. I wanted to quickly ask you, George, before we talk about why you chose BSV, your experience with the Tim Draper venture competition. Tell us about that and how you fared.
Yeah, that was a very interesting experience. At the time, what I wanted to see was, a BSV application actually, the idea for it at least get funded by somebody outside of the ecosystem. Because if we were going to move to Bitcoin being just plumbing in the background, our ideas alone should have merit in and of itself. So we went up against around 80 other startups from around the world, and ended up coming first place in the competition. So, we had some validation because we had paying users already when we were prototyping in our Slack group. But then when we went into that competition and came out first, we were pretty surprised. So it was definitely a good indication that, we're onto something. And, we really want to just push what we can do with Bitcoin. And of course, making sure that we are satisfying our users' main goals, which is all about improving yourself, honoring commitments, and having fun while you're at it too.
Great. So we know George has been a Bitcoin and big block BSV vision supporter for a long time. Ryan, I want to talk to you about how you first learned about this thing that is BSV. Tell us how you learned about it and why it's attractive to you as a consideration for creating blockchain functionality for your company, which is right now not using blockchain.
Sure. Yes, and to be frank, I'm certainly probably one of the least technical people up here, even though I do run a tech company. But in a community that I live in up here in Utah, I don't know if you can see in the background, I'm sort of in the mountains of Utah.
It's gorgeous. Looks like
yes.
Switzerland.
Yeah, exactly. Very similar. I'm up about, I guess in meters, about 2,500 meters up in the mountains. And so up here, there's sort of a community of people that are all sort of different leaders in different areas of business. And actually, one of my neighbors is heavily present in the BSV community via Fabric. And so I got introduced to BSV from her. And as well, there's another, actually one of the founders of Tether lives up here. And also very familiar with sort of blockchain from him. And so over time, I've learned a bit about it. And so, as I learned more and we started to approach what we were going to do in our business and try to solve some of the problems that we face with, sponsorship and really building community, because that's a lot of what we're doing is building these sort of communities, whether they be a series of events or a community of people around ongoing events. The idea is how do you kind of tie those together? And as we looked at sort of NFTs and other things that can just be done to drive behavior on blockchain in general, obviously a big factor comes in with cost and transaction costs. And that's obviously where BSV really excels. And so for us, what that allows us to do is, as opposed to some of the other chains that you might create NFTs on, where it can be quite costly, and that's going to kind of reduce the things that you can create those NFTs with. And so for us, having BSV that really lowers that cost, it opens up a lot of opportunities for what we can do with it.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot when I talk to businesses around the world. They want not just low cost, but reliable costs so that they can plan their business models on them. So speaking as the general business person learning to explore blockchain technology, I actually really want you to talk to all the people who are just less experienced with blockchain. If you're a business executive, what are the kinds of other questions you asked or thought about as you were exploring whether to use BSV that would help guide other business executives as they're considering a blockchain choice?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was really trying to understand, as I waded into trying to understand that transaction cost and sort of where and when that comes in. Because the other side of it for me is there are plenty of instances and things that we can do that don't necessarily have to be on the chain, right? There's many things we can do. I guess some people call it with a side chain or on our own databases, et cetera. And so for me, it was trying to learn, where and when you actually need to implement that and bring something, have the transaction happen and be recorded on the chain.
Okay, great. Well, we're going to be looking forward to seeing what you are hopefully doing on BSV and perhaps at our next CoinGeek conference.
Yes.
George, what's next for Honā?
Yeah, so we've just finishing up phase 1. If anybody has signed up to the wait list, we'll be sending out some details about the next build that should be released very shortly. So phase 2, we're moving into more features around team commitments. So like what we were talking about with the multi-sig escrow, tying up loose ends around that. And then also, actually, folks have been talking about the NFT side. That's something that some of our users actually asked for. They said, wouldn't it be cool if, you complete a commitment and you get a unique NFT reward for completing that commitment? So we're working on that and bringing that in as well.
Are you looking to raise capital?
Oh, yes, of course, the capital. We are in our next round of fundraising because the first round came from Tim Draper. So if anybody is interested in chatting, please feel free to reach out, get in touch. And we can talk.
Anyone who wants to join Tim Draper in investing in Honā, please contact George. I can connect you to him. So, Holger, you have, ever since I've known you and first communicated with you, have been very clear that you believe in the vision of Bitcoin as expressed in BSV. Why is that, and why do you think that should lead businesses to want to actually build their applications only on BSV as you would like to see?
Yes, so I'm really heavy in thinking and thinking out of the box always. And in terms, so Basler Kantonalbank has just recently won a prize in sustainability, and I think that is really something
big topic in Bitcoin mining these days.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But okay, there is some cost. But the good thing is you can kind of measure the sustainability in the product or the piece of cost for transaction cost.
Right.
This is a good. You get a good idea if something is sustainable and if it's high.
How much activity and transactions.
If it's a high fee, you have to think about if this is sustainable. But for me, just the recent weeks, I had and including the NFT token hype. And by the way, we talking about BizTech. I just make clear, so banks are moving a little bit away from the mainframes we code. Avalok is the biggest mainframe, and we have lots of different mainframe softwares there for trading, for risk, for and SIP as well. And we creating integration layers in-house, which is built of Kafka, which is a database, a streaming database, which is kind of a blockchain already, but it's kind of in-house. It's closed, and lots of different banks are building the same. I know, yeah. So they're just building the same, and also other companies are building integration layers, which is the pre-thing of a blockchain, because we can much more better share data and code and all the things there on this thingy. That's why I think tokenization, this getting a second incentive, because I get an incentive coding or creating stuff for my bank already. So that's the first incentive. I get paid for creating stuff. I can have a second incentive with the tokenization of my microservices structure or whatever data structures I create, or even business logics on top. You're legal, or yeah. When I was working with contracts as well, most of the contracts are always built the same. They have a paragraph and so building blocks in paragraphs.
Lawyers like to charge a lot of money for the same contract over and over again.
Yes. Why not sharing this? Because they're easier to understand as well. Yeah, everybody can, principle, then create a contract on basis of, hey, this token here has all the building blocks for contract already, and I know it's used by a bank or it's checked by an audit company. And then we reduce lots of inventing the wheel again.
Right. Got it.
That's sharing. That's really sharing. And I engage people right now, come to me and discuss this, because I started to discuss with our CTO in terms of trying to be much more efficient in our coding section, which I can help. That's the only thing I see I can help, at the moment.
Got it.
Oh, sorry.
So, Ryan, last question for you as we start wrapping up. What are some future possible uses of blockchain technology you think might change your industry that we should start thinking about? And how might people work with you to accomplish those?
A great question, and one that we're thinking about as well. I'm not sure I got the golden answer here, but I think really for us, it comes down to things that can drive more community and drive behaviors of people having that sort of sense of belonging with the community, right? So where we see things going in our industry is really around gathering, sort of something we call like an always-on event, right? So if you're a community, like say one of my oldest clients is Magenta, which is an e-commerce platform, right? And they have a big community of developers that really surround that, same as perhaps CoinGeek has you guys have a big community around you. And so what we're trying to do is create sort of these always-on events, which are basically sort of like your own little mini Netflix around that community. And so the more we can use, blockchain to drive behavior there by giving people rewards, by helping them be able to exchange or trade those rewards to drive the behavior we're after, we think that's something that's really valuable and something we're looking at heavily.
Great. And George, what do you want to see for the future of Honā, and how can companies and investors work with you?
Yeah, for the future of Honā, the honor and integrity, that's a value that I already held, and it just fit in well with the company and what we're about now. And I think Bitcoin really helps us do that by providing integrity from the technology standpoint and where we, record things and data. So I would love to see just more applications that are really making use of, the transparency aspect, because I think it's a huge culture shift. And things we're seeing in the NFT space, people are starting to ask the right questions. And I really do see that what we're doing by sticking to the fundamentals, it's going to win out in the long run, because history has always shown, patience and persistence for those who have it. So in terms of investment, yes, please speak with Jimmy if anybody's interested in chatting further about this. We already have a fair few interested investors, and so we'll be taking our pick in the next month or two.
Lucky you, taking your pick of investors. All right, thank you for this panel. I appreciated the conversation. Holger, please give a round to Holger, Ryan, and George. And George, we'll see you tomorrow for the other panel you're on.
Different backgrounds, diverse geographies, and disparate experiences can all inspire ideas that lead to breakthroughs. And with blockchain, we've barely scratched the surface on its potential. So what's next for this breakthrough technology, and where can it take us? That's where you come in. Learn to leverage your creativity and harness the power of blockchain technology to tackle the biggest challenges of today and opportunities of tomorrow. Discover how you can make your ideas a reality with BSV, the only blockchain that scales unbounded, offers a stable platform with world-class security, and the support of a global community of experienced, knowledgeable developers. Join the 4th BSV Virtual Hackathon, and let's build the future on the blockchain.